Welcome back. I have a question for you. Do you ever feel like owning a Land Rover Defender is kinda like a never-ending list of to-dos? The last week or so, I've had a crazy ADHD list of things that need to be done on this vehicle. So this video is a complete mishmash of just the endless jobs which a Defender requires. First, I'm doing an awning with some brackets. Then I'm investigating a bad earthage. Earthage? Is that a word? Earth connection? I have a center cubby lid to repair. I have drive flanges to fit and sort out. I have to fit a rocker cover gasket because there's oil leaking, and at the same time I guess I should probably do the valve clearances as well. It never ever ends, but secretly I love it. But before we get started, there is something I wanted to share with you. Crazy coincidence that while this hectic week or so was going on, a company called Magic Mind reached out to me. And what Magic Mind does is it's basically like calm energy. It's full of amazing stuff like lion's mane. I've got a list of stuff here. It improves your focus, reduces stress. It's called Calm Energy. And it's got some unpronounceable phosphocellularine, lion's mane, bacopa moneri, something else, cordyceps mushrooms. It's got B2, B3, B12 vitamins. It's got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And it's got turmeric, L-theanine, which is apparently a really good thing, and ashwagandha, which sounds like it's from Wakanda. It's an amazing cocktail that doesn't leave you buzzing. It tastes pretty nice too. I've been having it for a few days. I really like it. It reminds me of some kind of sweet I had when I was a kid. It chills you out, but gives you focus and energy. And I know this kind of sounds like an advert, but they haven't paid me to say this. They just sent it to me and said, try it out, see what you think. And truthfully, it really does. In the morning, it sort of like helps me focus and get my to-do list together. If you want to experience this for yourself, so in the description, there's a code there for Magic Mind. Go and get some if you want. But without further ado, let's hit this list. A little while ago, I reached out to Landtrekker UK to see if we could collaborate on anything. They were very kind to send me one of their X-Demo 270-degree awnings. The only catch was that it had been damaged and needed a small section to be sewed back up again. The trouble with that is I needed to learn how to sew first. Well, when my mum passed away, she left me her sewing machine, and I've not taken it out of the box since. I figured now is as good a time as any. And after watching a few YouTube tutorials, I might stand a small chance of getting this awning usable again. I had to learn how to wind a bobbin and thread a needle, things I never thought I'd say or need. But hey, it's always good to expand your skill set and have a go at something that frightens you or doesn't immediately excite you. In my head, sewing was a mum or a nana's job, but I have the machine and I wanted to have a go. This is why you need mums and nanas to do this stuff. Oh. Look at the state of this. Yep, it wasn't pretty, that's for sure, but it was quote-unquote repaired, and that's good enough for me. I'm all about repairing and reusing things rather than buying new, but that hideous blue stitching does make me die a little bit inside. Hopefully no one will notice. The next thing on my mind was attaching it to the roof rack. Landtrekker supplied me with some bolts and brackets, but I wasn't 100% sure how it all went together. It's pretty simple to be fair, because the back of the awning has this channel designed for sliding bolts into, similar to the roof rack. Now I just have to make it all work together. I thought it best to do a quick visual measure up and then attach the brackets to the roof rack first, and then try and slide the awning onto the bolts. Keeping in mind that the position does matter because it's a 270-degree awning, so it will wrap around the rear of the vehicle, so I need to give it enough space to go all the way around and not be obstructed by the rack. Now comes the tricky part. Wind, I'm on my own. I've got to line up 6 bolts with 3 slots. You know something's going to go wrong. But amazingly, the only thing that went wrong was the blasted camera, which couldn't find a focal point. I might have just got away with that. Now before I tighten everything up and button it down, probably a good idea would be to open it up and see how it wraps around as a 270 awning, to see if I've got it lined up correctly on the side of the car. So it's windy, and wish me luck. I am so grateful to Landtrekker. I can already see that this is going to be an amazing piece of kit for future trips. It's so incredibly easy to put up and takes like 30 seconds, even when it's windy. But at that specific moment, I got a phone call from a friend who had just crashed his car and needed help. Hello, mate. Hello? I took him off to hospital. He's okay, but the car is knackered. So it just meant that I couldn't finish fitting the awning yesterday, and I kind of just had to tighten it up and just get in the car and head over to him. So I noticed a little bit of a problem with it. When the bracket is bolted tight up against the roof rack, it fouls the front edge where it's been welded, and so it pushes the bracket skew. So what I'm thinking is to put a little spacer underneath the bracket, or between the bracket and the roof rack, and then hopefully it won't tilt forward. It'll sort of level it up a bit. So I need to find a material that's going to be the right kind of stuff. Ugh. The best I could come up with is this hard garage flooring plastic that I've got, and I think it's going to be the right stuff because it won't vibrate. It doesn't matter if water gets to it, it's not going to corrode. I think we could be onto a winner here. I think I know what you're thinking. Why don't you just put some washers in there and that'll space it out. The thing is that there's only one bolt in the center of the bracket, so if I put a washer in there, it now changes the surface area of the bracket and the roof rack from the width of the bracket to the width of the washer, and then it can bend this way and that way, and I don't want to do that. So I need something that's going to go in as a spacer the width of the bracket. It wasn't perfect, but it was a ton better than what it was, and at least now the awning doesn't tilt down when it's open. The end caps could now go on to complete the install. Okay, let's have a look at it. If you're at all considering a wraparound awning for camping, do check out Landtrekker. Their stuff is really good and actually affordable. This awning is £600 compared to the £2,000 for the Alucab equivalent. I'm stoked, and for the price point, this thing is a lot for your money. This is fantastic. Thanks again to Landtrekker. This is a great bit of kit. Mondays started with me being a little frustrated at how stiff my rear door had become. So I had a thought. I think these deserve some nipples. Let me explain. This rear door spare wheel carrier holds a lot of weight, and these pivots need to be greased occasionally. To do that, you need to take it all apart and apply a layer of grease and put it all back together again. Total pain in the butt. And to be honest, I'm just never going to do it. But I figured that since the bolt runs through the center of the pivot, maybe I could use that as a grease delivery system. All I'd need to do is drill a hole down the middle of the bolt and then a couple of holes in the side at points either side the nylon spacer so the grease gets to the right areas. Then pop a grease nipple on the top and voila. For this part of the job I had to borrow a friend's pillar drill, as it would be an absolute nightmare to drill a straight hole by hand. Also, I only had one 5mm drill bit, so I had to be careful not to break it. Once I had the holes drilled out, I could cut a thread into the top of the bolt and screw in the grease nipple. I mean, honestly, who named this thing? So just in case you don't know what this does, right, by putting a grease nipple on the bolt and drilling some channel holes, this is a grease gun, and this clips onto the grease nipple. And now watch the grease, watch the grease. Oh! Do you see it come out? And when that blocks off, it should come through. Oh! Sick! Look at that. And then I just simply uncouple, and it's greased. And so now I don't have to take it apart every time I want to grease the pivots. First one going in. Second one going in. Now, I guess the question on mine and everybody's mind is, has it made any difference? Heck yeah! Why didn't I do that a year ago? Tuesday was wet and rainy, which immediately reminded me of a job I've been meaning to do. As you can see, I've only got one windscreen wiper. And that's because when I was driving the other day in the rain on the motorway at 50-60 miles an hour, the little grub screw came loose and the windscreen wiper just flicked right off. Disappeared. Never to be seen again. So I've ordered some new ones and they came and I just got to fit them. The wipers that I had on there weren't even that old, but like I said, one flew off. And I didn't want to spend the premium that I spent on those, which was 60 quid or something. So I went for a cheaper one that says premium. And Lucas, I know, has something to do with Land Rovers, so 2 new arms, 2 new blades. Fortunately, it's a dead easy job to swap them over. And this time I made sure the adapter and the grub screw were on tight. The only slightly tricky part to it is getting it matched up on the splines, so the wipers start and stop in the correct positions. It's a bit of a fiddly process of turning the wipers on and off and readjusting each time until you're satisfied that they're clearing the whole windscreen and working perfectly. On Wednesday, it was time to replace the rocker cover gasket and do the valve clearances. I mean, why not? It's quite simple on the 300 TDI engine, thankfully. First, the rocker cover needs to come off. It shouldn't be too tight, so it generally comes off without a fuss. Under here is the rocker. It's the doodad that pushes the valves up and down in a specific order to make the engine run. And to make the engine run better, the clearance between the rocker and the top of the valve needs to be set from time to time. And because each valve needs to be set when it's in its open position, you need to manually rotate the engine to each exact spot. And luckily, with a 4-wheel drive, you can jack up one wheel and put the car in 5th gear and rotate the wheel to move the valves up and down. Now, using the rule of 9, you can adjust the correct valve. It works like this. You have 8 valves in a 4-cylinder engine. Number 1 is at the front of the engine, number 8 at the back. You then rotate the wheel and therefore rotate the engine and the valves. Now, whichever valve is fully closed, for example, number 3, then whatever number added to 3, which gives you 9, so valve number 6, will be fully open and the one you adjust. 3 plus 6 equals 9. And just the same, if valve 1 was closed, 1 plus 8 gives you 9, so valve 8 would be open, and so on and so forth. To set the clearance, you use a thickness gauge, in this case a 0.20mm gauge, and adjust the rocker until there is a slight resistance when you place the thickness gauge in the gap between the rocker and the valve. It must not pinch the gauge down, and when you've done all that, it should be good. Now I can finally get to the main reason for opening the bonnet, to replace the simple rocker cover gasket, a really inexpensive part that is mega easy to fit. They often perish and start weeping oil, so it's a worthwhile job to do. Well, now the proof will be in the pudding. Let's see what it does. think I'll call that a win. Yep. There's always something, isn't there? But this something has been bugging me for a little while now. You see, the cubby doesn't match the covers. And this lid is not even attached anymore. So I want to try and sort that out. I also want to add a little bit of padding because, you know, I end up driving with a wonky spine and it's not comfortable and it's hard, so my elbow aches after a little while. Let's see what we can do about that.
In all honesty, I could have just bought a new cubby and it would have been job done, but it still wouldn't have matched the seat covers because Exmoor trim don't do a canvas cover for the center cubby in the same material. So I thought I'd use my new sewing skills and poach random materials from my workshop and cobble one together. I had a piece of leftover ply from another thing I made, which I could use as the new lid. And then I sacrificed a garden chair cushion because it seemed to be the perfect thickness, and I also stole the zip from its cover and learned how that cover was sewn together, getting ideas for how to do mine. But there's no substitute for experience, and even though I had a somewhat template right in front of me, I still had no idea where to start. But I started anyway.
Look at that! Got a zip in and everything. Never thought I'd be able to sew anything. I mean, it's not great, but hey, look at that. Right, now I just need to attach a little bit of strap so that it doesn't flap all the way back. And what else? The hinge. For the strap, I've got this sort of buckle tie strap, and I'm just going to lob a piece off the end of it and use that. This is the old one, so we'll go about that long. That'll do. 14. Sick! How nice is that? Cruising. Oh, now my cubby matches my covers. I'm supposed to be investigating a bad earth connection because when I drive along and I turn my lights on, my temperature and fuel gauge go over to the maximum, which is a little bit stressful, but doesn't mean the car's actually overheating. When I come here and I just do this, I can live with it, genuinely. The other day I noticed this almighty clonk coming from the back of the car as I went over a speed bump. So I stopped to investigate and I noticed that the shock had come off the little rubber bushing at the top. So I immediately thought, oh, I need new shocks, but that's also great because I'd love to get old man emu stuff and everything. So I put a little reel on Instagram and someone said, don't be a donut, why don't you just buy the rubber bushings and replace those and keep the shocks? And I thought, man, that's the point. So 18 quid later I got rubber bushings for both sides, and that's the job for today. The top of the shock came off with no dramas at all, but the lower nut was a totally different story. It started off alright, but I could quickly tell that the nut was a bit rounded, so I suspected there might be an issue once I got to the bottom slightly more corroded threads. The bottom of the shock just kept spinning as I tried to undo the nut, so I even tried to use a chain whip to hold the shock in place, but that eventually snapped and I was left trying to use my bare hands again. How are you meant to do this? Alright, this is the last resort. before I get a blowtorch and cut the back of this car off to get this shock out. Alright, so I've borrowed my friend's impact wrench. Let's see if that'll do the trick.
But all it did was turn a hexagon into a circle.
Rounded.
Then I remembered I drank a magic mine, so I should be able to figure this out.
And I've smacked a 18 onto a 19. Thank you, Magic Mind.
I guess it really does work. Now I could change over the rubber bush for a new one, and it should be problem solved.
Genuine Land Rover.
But you guessed it, it didn't go as planned.
I'm not really an expert, but I don't think it's supposed to be this loose. Okay, look. I tried to do the right thing and save some money.
But I guess now all I'm thinking about is that this just needs to last until I can get all new Old Man Emu suspension.
Okay. There you have it, the most topsy-turvy, upside-downy week ever. Turned around by Magic Mind. If you do fancy having a go on it, check out the link, order some Magic Mind with the code DALEMM. Anyway, that is Land Rover ownership in a nutshell. Just a constant tidal wave of little jobs that need doing. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found that useful, or entertaining at least. Please do consider subscribing, and I'll catch you again very, very soon.